Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum and I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction Company taking a look at some of the guns that they're going to be selling in their upcoming December of 2017 Premier Firearms Auction. And today we're taking a look at an enormous behemoth of a rifle. This is a rifle manufactured by JD Jones, or I think his company name is SSK Industries, and it's chambered for the largest sporting purpose cartridge that's out there, the 950 JDJ. It's this thing, and it's freaking huge. This was originally built on specific request of a customer of JD Jones who wanted a big bore rifle for shooting cast bullets. And so the original loading for this cartridge, they took a 20mm Vulcan brass case, they cut it down to a 70mm case length, necked it up to 95 caliber, which is 24.1 millimeter, and then they loaded that with a 2600 grain bullet fired at approximately 2200 feet per second. That's going to give you a lot of muzzle energy, about 28,000 foot-pounds of energy. To convert this into metric, this would be a 168 gram bullet traveling at about 670 meters per second for a total of 38,000 joules of muzzle energy. Really an incredible amount. Now, some of you watching are going to have already noticed and recognized that 95 caliber is a lot bigger than 50 caliber. And according to US law, anything that is over 50 caliber, 0.5 inch in diameter, has to be registered as a destructive device. Well, this is not. And the reason it's not is because JD Jones got a sporting purposes exemption from the ATF for the 950 JDJ cartridge. So this does actually transfer and handle just like any typical rifle. The thing weighs a little bit over 60 pounds, probably a quarter to a third of that weight is in the muzzle brake. That is an absolute beast of a muzzle brake. We in fact have a little clip of high-speed footage of it shooting, and you can see just how ridiculous that brake is. In fact, the tablecloth that we had under the rifle was thoroughly shredded by that muzzle brake. Let's start by putting this in a bit of proper context. Here, for comparison's sake, is a 577 Snider cartridge. This is 57 caliber. This is already substantially more than 50 caliber. Here is the 950 JDJ. It's a lot bigger. As such, it doesn't necessarily require a complex action, it just requires an extremely strong action and a very large action. Even a really strong action built for something like a 50 caliber Nitro Express type of cartridge is just not going to be physically large enough to hold something like this in the system. So actions for this had to be custom made by McMillan because they're just too ludicrously huge to be commercially available. It is a bolt action system, and it's a single shot rifle. So you'll notice the receiver is completely enclosed on both sides. There is no ejection or feeding port. The reason for that is you actually have to take the bolt out in order to load it. This is a technique that was used on a number of 50 BMG single-shot rifle designs on the civilian market a little while back, honestly, not so many recently. But what you do is take the bolt out, and then you take the cartridge and actually slide it into the bolt like this, and then you load the whole assembly into the gun. One thing to be aware of when you're doing this, and you'll see this reflected in the other video that is out there of someone shooting, not this rifle, but one of the other rifles, is they're always extremely deliberate and careful when closing the bolt. And there's good reason for that. When the bolt is in the open position, the striker, the firing pin, right here, can't go forward. But when you close it, what you're doing is rotating this into this position, and then the only thing holding the firing pin back, and it's got a tight enough spring on it that I can't even really pull it back manually, this is held back in this position by the sear in the rifle. So in theory, if you were to close this in a fast and rough manner, you could conceivably jar the sear off of the firing pin, let the firing pin down, and perhaps fire the gun, probably not out of battery. The curvature here just ensures that the firing pin won't actually protrude enough to fire until it is effectively locked. However, almost as bad as firing out of battery with a rifle like this is having it fire when you're not ready for it to fire because of those 38,000 joules of energy that come out the front. That much energy is also transmitted into the rifle and has an incredible amount of recoil. So the guys in the video are probably a little bit overly ginger about this. They're probably and maybe justifiably a bit paranoid, but you wouldn't want to like give this bolt a swift smack with your hand to close it. This is compounding the fact, or compounded by, the fact that this has a really light trigger. You can hear how heavy the firing pin spring in that thing is. Very little travel on the trigger and remarkably light. So, and no manual safety on this. The manual safety for a rifle like this is don't put a cartridge in it until you're ready to fire. As I mentioned, the stock is a McMillan stock with a nice, thick, soft rubber recoil pad on it. Nice, big, wide pistol grip, and you can see just how wide this surface is. You want a long surface here, and you want it nice and square to evenly divide out the recoil forces and not concentrate them in any one place that could cause a crack in the stock. And of course, we can't finish up a video like this without taking a specific look at the muzzle brake on this beast. To some people, a muzzle brake like this might be an indication that maybe it's a gun you don't want to fire. Once again, just for size comparison's sake, there's our 577 Snyder. I can't put that cartridge parallel to the brake because the rifle and the brake are heavy enough that they are putting a bend in the table, causing the cartridge to roll down the table, if I put it that way. So anyway, that muzzle brake weighs approximately twice as much as a typical semi-auto rifle. That's like an 18-pound muzzle brake right there, and you'll be glad of it when you pull the trigger on this thing. Well, the information out there on the internet about this rifle and this cartridge is pretty lacking in substance. So hopefully you've enjoyed watching this video and learning a little bit more about what was actually going on behind the development of this rifle, why it's out there, and what it's actually capable of. If you are interested in having it yourself, it is coming up for sale at Rock Island. So take a look at the description text below the video, and you'll find a link there to Rock Island's catalog page on this beast. And you can take a look at their pictures, description, price estimate, all their other information on it. And if you decide you're interested, you can place a bid on through their website, over the phone, or live here at Rock Island at their auction. Thanks for watching.